What's up, everyone? Welcome to I guess let's just call this the Go Long podcast, Jim, because we haven't done this every week like old times, but I'm sitting around watching football, we're texting each other. I'm like, we've just got to get together. We've got to make this happen. I know you're a busy man. You're the GM of the Memphis Showboats in the UFL. For those who don't know, who are maybe new to Go Long, Jim Monis right here, Super Bowl champion for the 2009 New Orleans Saints. Director of personnel for the Buffalo Bills, a scout for the Philadelphia Eagles before that, but one of the sharpest, smartest modern football minds I know. And I know I blow smoke up your ass every time, Jim, but you all help us get a little smarter when it comes to pro football. So thanks a lot for hanging out.
Incredible intro, Tyler. Thank you. And that's why I do the show. I mean, I very rarely am I called sharp and bring something. No, I'm just kidding. I do appreciate it. And it is like old times, man. We got into a habit for about 3 years, right?
I
Weekly,
know.
weekly.
We'd get
Um,
together at Hamburg Brewing and then Fatty, and then he had to go become a general manager. So,
well, I could stop beating your phone up with text messages all the time, with me complaining about every GM in the NFL. And now I can be a GM in Memphis and people can look how bad I do. They could criticize me now.
it is. I mean, this is an interesting time of year, though, isn't it? I mean, this is when a lot of owners are trying to figure out what they're going to do with the people running their football operation, and a lot
This
and a lot of
is
people, coaches and GMs, are still employed that I thought might have been fired 3, 4 weeks ago. So does
First
that
off,
surprise you at all, or do you like the fact that
no,
they have a chance to kind of finish the season in some of these markets?
you're right. It's firing people is not, we talk about sometimes, I don't want to say we, but in general, we throw around, he should be fired, he should be fired. There's actually HR, there's actually things that go into things that it's not as simple as people think. I've been through it on both sides. And it's gut wrenching. It flips a building, it destroys a building for weeks, regardless if you want it to happen or not. Like the Bears may have wanted it to happen. How'd that work out for them? I mean, it's a nightmare. Like
Yeah.
they got rid of their guy, but it still doesn't solve anything. It's just for a week. It helps you think maybe you're going to get it right, but it hurts a lot of people. So, anyway, point is, it's not easy just to fire people. That being said, it's going to happen. It's always about timing when, we don't know contracts. We don't know people's contracts. We don't know, the stuff on the inside that they know. So that always plays a part too, why they might be holding on. Although the
Right, because
NFL
Rex
has,
Bryan brought up his story with you guys on ESPN, didn't he?
it's the ultimate, he had the ultimate, his agent, I think was Jimmy Sexton at the time. Um, but he had the best deal ever. He could walk away. Oh no, I'm sorry. That was Doug Marrone. Doug Marrone had the best deal ever. I'm sorry. He had the best deal ever where he actually had a choice to walk away and still get paid. Unreal. That's a whole other story. Sorry. The Rex thing. See, look, that's how many crazy stories we had with head coaches. Reason why I'm the GM of the Memphis Showboats. If you don't have that stuff right, it's not going to work. But Rex Ryan, he knew things were bad. I don't think he'd have to answer for himself, but that thing got wild at the end, like he talked about, where we were the bad contract, not bad. The details of the Tyrod contract force us as in the organization to make a financial decision to not play Tyrod, not because of his performance, because of his contract. That rocked the team, was not good. It just wasn't right for anybody. We were all part of it. It was just it was spiraling out of control. You can feel it. Atlanta may feel it right now. Chicago's in the tornado. We've all been, us, anybody that's been in the NFL on that side of it, you're in the tornado and you actually can't wait to get thrown out of the tornado and get your
That's
life
what I was
back.
going to ask you. If some of these coaches, I mean, I think Rex just said to Terry, and I guess by proxy, you and Doug, like, just fire me then. Just get rid of
Yeah.
me if this is how it is.
And I don't, he didn't like the nobody liked the setup at that point. It had really, like I said, it had spiraled. I mean, we're all looking around like, what can we do? And and I always take it back to this. We felt fortunate that we didn't get fired as well. And it went the other way where we got selected, Doug Whaley and myself were selected by the Coolest to help find Sean McDermott, who did what we wanted. He brought stability and consistency as a head coach. That's what the organization needed. We can get into the finer tune details of Sean right now on what's going on with the end of
Yeah.
game and all that. But he brought what every head coach needs to bring. It's what the Bears are craving: consistency, stability. You know what you get when you're walking in the building. Jordan Phillips is a great example, the D tackle for the Bills, who keeps coming back. He loves the culture here. Whatever it is, winning helps. Starts with winning. And I think, well, actually, let me take that back. Starts with Josh Allen. Every player wants to come back to Buffalo. Every coach wants to come back to Buffalo if they can, because Josh Allen is the quarterback. But point being is Sean has also given them, the players know we have a chance to win. I can max out my talent. They have good coaches. They care about the players. That's what they need to get. The players want to know you care about them. Simple as that.
I mean, yeah, like my series was bastardized by a few of the bros out there. For those who read it, and everybody listening here read it, like this was a big part of it. Like the Bills were in this state of chaos for a number of years. I mean, you kind of got pulled into the chaos. You saw it firsthand. This organizational just unrest. Like you said, there just wasn't a foundation. There wasn't enough discipline. Rex took this team to and Rex was fun in a lot of ways. Don't get me wrong. We've talked to players who loved Rex, but it was nuts for many reasons. So the pendulum is going to swing to Sean McDermott. The pendulum is going to swing to structure, accountability, discipline, and there are a lot of players like Jordan Phillips who have loved the head coach for a number of years, and they were quoted directly in the stories. They view him as a coach that the Bills needed at that time, who gets them, who they enjoy playing for, who is evolving. Now, a coach who has his faults late in games, and we're going to get into that on the heels of this Rams loss. But you're right. Like, number one, to kind of bring it full circle, there's a lot of teams in total disarray who do need some semblance of structure. You've got to start from square one and look for a certain type of player who's wired a certain type of way, and then think about winning down the road. Right? And that's what's interesting with the Chicago Bears, because you could go the offensive mastermind route, and maybe that offensive mastermind is somebody who has some Dan Campbell in them, um, Kevin O'Connell in them, and will know how to truly flesh out a building and structure a building. And I mean, that's the best of all worlds. But man, if you just find an amazing play caller who can't do that stuff, I don't think the Bears are going to get out of this state of disarray that they've been in. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I would lean toward that kind of coach than somebody who can just draw up a great play. Maybe Ben Johnson maybe he checks every box. I've talked to line players who do view him as that kind of voice, that kind of leader, and he's been around the best in the game in Dan Campbell. But I think you got to start there if you're the Bears, right? Like, find somebody who is going to bring some order to the situation.
That's it. They need to explore. Those interviews were so revealing. We talked about it before, but for the people that haven't heard those episodes, it was just, I felt fortunate to be a part to see this coach's interview and to hear them pour out that's their career goal, is to be a head coach. So it's cool to see them present really everything they're going to bring to the table. Ben Johnson, I'm not sure, Tyler. We know he can call plays and put out an offense. We know the Bears have a piece of gold, the major piece of gold, in my opinion, in Caleb Williams, of the core four pieces. They don't have the GM, they don't have the head coach, and the ownership is a mess. So they got a lot to fix in that building, but the head coach can do that. Sean McDermott was ready to flip the building, not just the Bills team. He didn't come in here to call defenses. Sean did not care about calling defense. He knew that would be his thing. He trained, he knew he would take care of the defense. That's easy for him. What he was ready to work on was the hard part. He needed to gut the building and build it back. He did it. And we talked about it. They have the core, in my opinion, they still have the core four. We can talk about Sean too, but I do believe Sean's done it. You win this. you got the quarterback. You know you can win. You've been in the big moments in the playoffs. You just got to capitalize now. And ownership spends money and stays out of the way. The Bills have the core four to win a Super Bowl. So everything. My point is, there's work to do other than just the head coach, just to come in and call plays for Caleb Williams or whoever the team is we're going to talk about. But you have Caleb. So do you go the route where you try to find somebody like Shanahan? Those rumors? Do you try to go and trade for Shanahan to coach the Bears? I'm asking you, would that be crazy for you?
I hadn't thought about that. I
You
kind of
it's
made
it's
my
worthy
thoughts on
of.
Shanahan known. I don't
I,
know about this
I think
guy.
it's
It's a
crazy.
little
I think
overrated.
trading for a coach is absolutely crazy. You have
Yeah,
Caleb Williams. I read an article. Somebody was writing about that. You have Caleb Williams. You're good. It's on you now. It's nobody else's fault. You found the hardest thing to find. They're not out there. They're not. They don't
exactly.
exist. And
Right.
you
They
saw
can
enough
make
of
everybody's
Caleb to
lives
know.
easier.
I think you've seen enough to know. I know he's kind of gotten beat up this year, but he's in chaos. He's in the tornado. A rookie is playing in the tornado. Bo Nix is not in a tornado. Jaden Daniels is not in a tornado. They are in a nice, beautiful, calm training setting for a rookie with coaches that have been there. There you go.
So let's bring it to the game of the week. The Buffalo Bills at the Detroit Lions. I'm sure a lot of listeners have seen the promo video that's kind of gone viral where you've got Sean McDermott at that introductory press conference that I'm sure you were at, Jim. I mean, you and Doug Whaley hired him, talking about how they're going to change everything. And I remember at the time watching it and thinking, okay, yeah, we've heard this before. We've heard this since God, who was after Marv? Wade Phillips to Greg Williams to Mike Malarkey to throw Dick Duran in there. No, Doug. We've all heard the coach at the podium trying to inspire a city to believe. But in retrospect, it's pretty damn cool to hear Sean McDermott talk like that. Then hear Dan Campbell. I mean, maybe the best press conference of my life when he's introduced as the Lions head coach, biting kneecaps, falling down, getting up, taking another hunk of the knee out. I mean, it was amazing. And people laughed at him. They called him, a Neanderthal from a different era. And lo and behold, he knew what the hell he was talking about, because 4 years into this thing, he is finding players who are an embodiment of everything he talks about in every speech, whether it's private or public. So what's fascinating to me, though, with this matchup, Jim, is Sean McDermott, I would say, since last December, has been on this evolutionary track toward becoming a more like Dan Campbell. He's been saying, we're going to choose to believe in our guys. We're going to play to win. A little more complimentary of Josh Allen than he's been in the past. And it's been reflected in action. You saw it late last season, that game in Miami to win the division, going for it. If it's fourth and short, he's choosing to believe. There might have been a tick of overcompensation in that Chiefs loss, a fake punt to DeMar Hamlin. You put the ball in your quarterback's hands. So that's exactly what he did when he played the Chiefs this year. 4th and 2, you kick the field goal to go up by 5. That's what old Sean McDermott probably would have done without thinking. This version is going for it. Steve Spagnuolo has the perfect call, by the way. I mean, we talked about it when I was right there on the field afterward, right? Like, he's showing man, he drops to zone. Josh Allen freezes, scans, smashes all the buttons on the controller, and scores a touchdown. Like that's what Sean McDermott should have always realized, and it seems like he has through this winning streak and belief. And this has been, he just seems more laid back. He's doing snow angels with the quarterback after the game. I've spoken with him multiple times. I think that says something. I know there are teams out there, after I've written something critical, who just closed the doors forever. I'll probably get into the details at some point. The Bills easily could have done that. And instead, I'm sitting down with Sean McDermott. We're talking for 2 hours at the combine. We barely even talked about the story. I thought that said a lot about him, a lot about the Buffalo Bills PR staff. to just kind of open the door, build a relationship. All we want to do here at Go Long is tell stories and cover the Buffalo Bills to the best of our ability, whether you're in the building or outside of the building. I'm going to talk to as many people as I possibly can. So my point being, like, I think Sean has made a concerted effort really to evolve, right? He has. How could you not say that? Where, maybe somebody like an Aaron Rodgers, when things are written critically about him in a certain Bleacher Report story in 2019, does not evolve, does not look in the mirror, does not change in any way whatsoever, and he lights the New York Jets completely on fire. So I commend the Bills. I commend Sean McDermott. I think that belief is something that you can't just talk about at a press conference. There's got to be action behind it, and we've seen the action. Like, it's not something like late in the season. I don't think you can just flip a switch, start going for it on fourth down, and become Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions. Like, the Lions, they got to that point. I'm just thinking of last week against the Packers, 4 or 5 on fourth down, and they had to do it because their defense, just besieged by injuries. He's trying to compensate for that to a degree by being even more aggressive than he usually is. You can only go for it and convert if subconsciously as a player, like, what the deal is with the team. Like, like, we're gonna operate with balls every Sunday, and we're gonna convert more often than not because that's just who we are. Like Dan Campbell said in the locker room, we don't talk about being tough. We are tough. I mean, that was an incredible speech. You can see why guys run through a wall for him, but you don't just snap your fingers and get to that point late in the season. I think enough time has passed, enough games have passed. They've been winning a lot of games. The Bills are now getting close to that place, and now they play the Lions. Which brings me to a question, finally, through all my rambling, Jim. Last week against the Rams, it felt like a little bit of a relapse. We've been pontificating about this timeout a lot here locally in Western New York. I'll say this, like, I think it's been a little extreme. Like, it was bad. It was bad. Tom Brady was right to call it out in the moment. The sneak was a bad call, and everybody should be on board with what you're doing there. They're all on the headset talking to each other, whether it's Joe Brady, Sean McDermott. Everybody should know, okay, you just can't run the risk of getting stuffed on a sneak there and have to burn a timeout, because then the game's pretty much over because nobody recovers onside kicks anymore. So it should be throw, timeout, timeout, get the ball back, try to win the game. There's that. There's the giving the extra down to Sean McVay the drive before. There's the 9 players on the field. It kind of felt like old Sean in a way. Like, when things get tight and it's the end of the game, will there be a short circuit? Will there be a malfunction? Will something go wrong in that moment that you've seen in these big games for the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs, particularly, in addition to the Philly kneel, the Hail Murray, some of the ones in the regular season, like, will there be another malfunction? So I think the Bills fans are right to be a little worried about that with what they saw against the Rams. I've got a few more thoughts, but I want to get Jim Onis's thoughts on this all, because it does seem like the head coach and the team have been evolving for good. Like, they've made some real changes here to win in the playoffs this time against Mahomes and Reed in that moment. And then you had that against the Rams. Does it concern you, Jim, when you see that?
I feel like that play has been, at the end of the day, they made a gamble that Josh Allen could score on a quarterback sneak. I don't find that terrible. More concerning for me was the lack of players on the field on that big moment on the punt, I believe it was. Was there a lot? Was it like 10 or 11 or 11 players? That's strange.
9 players on the field.
9 players. That's hard to believe. That's a miscommunication in big moments. That's frantic. That's panic. Doesn't happen. That concerns me more than that he gambled. I don't picture Sean as a gambler. I never see him at the casino when I'm there. Not that I'm there a lot, wink, wink, but I can't picture Sean at the $50 blackjack table too often. I think he's a little bit has his things together. I don't see him blowing money. But I just, at the end of the day, how can you defend if he goes into work and says, guys, we tried a quarterback sneak with Josh Allen? I mean, at the end of the day,
That's a great point, Jim. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's a gamble. You knew it was a gamble. And it's not, I hate to say, I always go back to but blackjack, you can have 20 and lose. I mean, you can have a great hand and lose. You can have a 1 yard quarterback sneak and actually get stuffed. It won't 9 out of 10 times, you probably get it. I hate to say it.
I
But
mean,
that's the defense of it. The other
right.
part is you're right. You can eliminate all this. You can eliminate that by just being safe. You can.
There's got to be part of Sean that's thinking, like, what in the hell? Like, everybody's telling me to believe in my quarterback, that
Exactly.
I've
And
got
now you
this
want me right.
6'5", 247,
That's what I'm trying
and
to
he needs
say. Like
1 yard.
now
What do you want me to do, guys?
those sneaks and all that is there is a little, the defenses do plan. They work hard to stop that. I mean, you see how they've changed that play, how they are stopping that now. Um, Whatever. I'm
Yeah,
still
even
going to
the
call it a
Eagles have
quarterback
been
sneak.
denied
Yeah,
from time to
a little
time.
bit. That's because it's just become ridiculous. But um, like I said, the only way he's ever going to shake this, we all know it. It's they got to get there. They got to win the games in the playoffs. Just win the games, and you won't have this. You won't have people questioning you quarterback sneaking with the greatest athlete in the league. I mean, size wise for his position. Like nobody will question you once you start winning, but you're going to get questioned on something like that when you have 9 players on the field, when you blow 13 seconds. That's the stuff it sticks in your head. And Josh Allen will and should not and will not ever get blamed, and that should never happen. Like we
Yeah, I mean,
always
you
say,
just nailed
coaches
it,
lose
Jim.
games. Coaches lose
Oh, I'm
games.
sorry. I should
No,
give you the
no,
oxygen on that epic line because it's so true. We text to each other a lot. Say it again.
that's it. It made me think of it as I was saying it. You didn't really, it was more, I was just thinking, hey, this in Josh Allen, it's not his fault if coaches lose games, players win games.
So true. Uh, would Sean McVay have gone for it on 4th and 7? Probably, right? If they declined that holding penalty, the drive before when the Rams scored the touchdown. But I think you want to at least make him think about it. You're giving one of the best offensive coaches, one of the best quarterbacks, an extra down. It becomes a 4th and 5. They convert, they score. So that's a concern. The sneak, the timeout, that's
Honestly,
somewhat of a
Tyler,
concern. The 9 men
that
on
was
the
a Super
field.
Bowl. That was a Super Bowl quality game. I mean, it really was. It was funny to see the Rams on Thursday night this week in the weather. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like we always talk about week to week leagues. I mean, we're talking about the Rams looking better than they've ever looked, and then they're out there, nobody can score a touchdown. Like, what's why I think every game should never be outside anyway. Anyway,
To your point, though, I mean, we're going to be talking about this. Everybody's going to be talking about this, as they should,
until
until you get to another AFC championship game. Josh Allen is playing better than anybody in the NFL right now. I don't even think it's close.
I
Right,
agree.
this season that he's
It's
on, you can look whether you look at the statistics or not. Just it passes the eyeball test when you see how he's throwing the Bills on his back and playing like this in defeat was unbelievable. So just to recap, Josh Allen became the first player since Otto Graham in 1954 to pass for 3 touchdowns and rush for 3 touchdowns in the same game. Per ESPN, his 51.88 fantasy points were the most for any quarterback in any game since 1950. So if you're taking fantasy football back decades before fantasy football was really invented, that's the best game ever. And he did all this, let's remember, without his back-to-back first-round picks in the game. Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid. Like he aren't playing. So Sean McVay is right to call him a quote-unquote alien. One more stat. Buffalo became the first team in the Super Bowl era to score 6 touchdowns, commit 0 turnovers, and lose. Before Sunday, teams were 245-0 in such games. So more than anything that happened on the field, I think what felt like a relapse to me more than anything when it comes to the head coach is when he's at the podium first recapping this all, and I'm paraphrasing so many words, kind of says, defense didn't perform well, special teams didn't perform well, offense, yeah, put up a lot of points, but you'd like to see your running backs get involved a little bit more. That's the one that made me like squint and lean back and what? And I've said this a few times this week. It really did feel like the scene in Christmas Vacation, where they're all looking at the lights in the front lawn, and Clark's father-in-law Art is just stern and and just says, "Hey, the little ones, the little lights aren't twinkling." It kind of felt like that, and we have heard stuff like that from Sean in the past after some disappointing losses. I mean, Josh Allen just played statistically one of the best games we've ever seen out of the quarterback position. For the gut initial reaction to not be, in so many words, I know he doesn't swear. That's a big difference between McDermott and Campbell, right? What one's dropping F bombs all the time, one never swears. For it not to be in so many words, like holy shit, I can't believe what my quarterback just did. He's the MVP. Like we've got to get our defense together. Like that was odd. That's the initial diagnosis of the loss. I always say, players and coaches, everybody's going to be most honest right after a game. That was telling, because more than any individual decision call, like the fact that the defense just couldn't stop the Rams whatsoever is a bigger story. I mean, because that's been the problem in the playoffs more than anything is Mahomes and Burrow, the one game, are just moving up and down the field and they can't stop them. So I don't know. Did you have any reaction to that? To that kind of being the initial response?
I guess that's his way of just saying he wanted to run the ball more. To me, Sean needs to just, hey man, that's just one of those rare games. Both teams were clicking. Like I guess that's where taking it way back. Hey, Jordan and Barkley are going against each other and they're both on fire. Nobody's going to stop anybody. So just buckle up. Hey guys, we're in it. Like tell your defense, look, man, we're in it. They're rolling, we're struggling. Let's just find a way to get a turn. Find a way to get something. If we get the ball, we're going to win. Whoever has it last, we're going to, it's going to win. That type mentality. It's one game. Can't become a habit. Now, that being said, they're going into a machine in Detroit. So this will be interesting. Detroit's got some guys back too, Tyler, coming back healthy, and that's always whenever you see and Bills are too. I think Coleman's coming back, and that's I was laughing how you said Coleman and Kincaid were out, and it didn't matter. Man, sometimes as a GM, when you take high picks and it doesn't matter, that kind of stings too, because you're looking around like, dang, did we need those picks that high? Like, if we're looking this good without Kincaid and Coleman, like, just something to think about.
They're going to draft like 7 defensive players in a row next April, right?
Well, I mean, how many can you put on the first round on the defensive line that just gets destroyed? I mean,
Ed Oliver.
Oh, let's not even. We've talked about him for however long he's been in the league. I've said the same thing. Soccer goalie gets lucky sometimes. They bad, but
that analogy is perfect, by the way.
I appreciate it.
On penalty kicks.
Yep. That's what he does because he's little. He's just so little, and they lock on, and he gets destroyed. Russo plays so hard, and he will have his moments because of his length, and he can run. But he gets pushed around too. He's just a long, leany guy. He's just not a powerful guy. Von Miller, not a powerful guy. That's why they brought in the beef. But they have some beef up there. There's one, opposite those guys. But the guys they've invested in, that return on investment is shaky.
Friend of the show, he was on, I believe, our first or second year doing the pod, which was amazing. I should link to it. I mean, Chris Sims reliving his own spleen. What the hell happened to his spleen? My God, we talked to him for an hour. Let me see if I can just pull it up here.
Tyler, it's funny to think about that. That was one of our first episodes.
Oh yeah, that's right. He was rushed into surgery and he needed his spleen removed.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, I could have died on the field. So we talked to him all about that. But to your point on this defense, he had this tweet that kind of hit it on the head. Bills defense just doesn't have a singular player who can wreck a game. They rely so much on scheme over talent, and when the Bills play a team that can overpower them up front and get forced into man-to-man, it's over. That's what Chris Sims tweeted earlier this week on X.
That's why I'm smiling when he says that they believe in, or they're forced to, not forced, but however he said they're doing scheme over talent. That's why I'm laughing. No, they're not. Look where they drafted these guys. They thought these guys were talented. Like they invested high picks. That means they did think they were talented. Now they got, obviously the secondary, I think has some, maybe the corner Benford, obviously they hit on him later in the draft.
Terrell Bernard is a stud.
But those types of linebackers thrive in Sean, those smaller linebackers in that system. That's them identifying that type of player. That's good scouting. Like those linebackers, Milano, when we had that last draft, Milano, Bernard, those guys fit. Sean knows how. Those guys play well. They're missing up front. They're not connecting on, and they missed on Elam, the corner. That's a first round pick. Nobody ever talks about it. People get fired over that some places. Josh Allen makes everybody happy.
I do think too when the defense looks this porous, and it was a sieve from the word go at SoFi Stadium. You could tell immediately.
It might be
Oh
this
shit! Like
weekend.
they're not going to stop anybody, right?
Right. It might be this weekend too. What did I
And
tell you too? I'm
we're
sorry,
getting
but
to that.
about Cincinnati is the greatest thing that happened to the Bills this year. Their best Christmas holiday gift, whatever you want to say, is the Bengals defense falling apart. Because the Bills never want to see that Bengals offense. We know that. Sorry, you just made me
Wait,
think of
that
that.
that
Yeah.
was one of my greatest miscalculations. Is Lou Anarumo's defense just completely falling apart? I mean, historically bad stuff. But I just think when you know early, like you're not going to get a stop, it becomes a different game. Like, and I get it. Like you may want the running backs involved. You may want James Cook to get 20 carries and Ray Davis gets 6 and Ty Johnson gets a couple and Josh Allen like in your head and when you're running the numbers, if you're Sean McDermott, like you may want all of that and you may know that's going to take pressure off of my defense. That's what he's thinking, right? Like the reaction to a defense looking like it was looking early in that Rams game from him is I need to run the ball. I need to help out my defense. To me, and I think others, I want to hear if you agree, the reaction should be, okay, that's fine. Like, we're going to outscore you. We're going to win a shootout. It becomes a different game. Like, you're going to manage that game through a totally different. Josh Allen is an alien lens. Like, it becomes that kind of game. And you don't give McVay that down. You just know I need the ball last. You do everything in your power to have the ball last. And then that would compel you to throw it at the 1 yard line because you know you might have. I didn't run the math on it. How much time would they've had if they get 3 quick stops, 3 quick timeouts, like 30 some seconds? Still, it gives you a chance. And he couldn't get to that place, right? Like, and it's going to come up again. Maybe you're in the playoffs, and it's even here at Highmark Stadium, and there's lake effect snow, and it's wind. There's 35, 40 mile per hour winds, and hell yeah, you better be able to run the ball. And they are more physical. They are more violent than they ever were in the past. And that's a great thing. It is. I mean, did the story on Ray Davis. He'll be a big part of that. But that's that kind of game. Like sometimes you are going to be on a fast track like you were out there at SoFi and you can't get a stop and you just have to win the greatest show on turf kind of game. Like you've got to be able to toggle between styles and just embrace that style.
That's exactly right. Every game's different. I was thinking about trying to run the ball in that game. It's almost like Steve, if Steph Curry comes out hot for like 20 points in the first quarter, and the Kerr thinks, "Hey, let's try to kick it inside. Let's try to get Draymond involved." No, keep shooting until the game's over, and it's just one of those nights. It's not all the time. And it was one. Josh was on it. Stafford was on it. Everybody else, everybody on defense, you're in it. You're just in it. It's not going to be your day on defense for stats.
Hmm.
I feel that way. I don't think you should overanalyze that if I'm the Bills. Like, hey, we got into a track meet, 2 great all-time quarterbacks were hot. I mean, I don't know what to say. Now, the problem is going to be, I think it becomes if the pattern continues like this week against Detroit. Now, if they get slammed for another 30, 40, which they probably will, to be honest with you, now they're going to have to really it's going to they got to stay strong in that locker room because here it comes,
Right.
right? Now comes the beatdown. And they will. They're ready for it. But I do think the defense has to be ready again. How are they going to slow down Detroit this week? I don't see how they're going to slow Detroit. I mean, they're not stopping that offense. Inside. Detroit's going to do whatever they want on this defense.
I can't remember exactly when he said it, but I believe Bobby Babbage at one point pointed to Ben Johnson and the Lions as like the hardest coordinator to defend against what they can do schematically with the misdirection and the matchups. And I loved Ben Johnson's comment earlier this season when asked about like his bag of tricks and are you worried about going through too much? And he's like, that's very deep. Like we got a lot of stuff. It's a big game for the Bills and it's a big game for the Lions. They've
I
got
actually think it
Philly
is
nipping
too
at
for
their
both.
heels. Like they
I
want
agree.
that
I
number
think
one
both
seed.
teams. Yep.
So, I don't really think anything should be held back. from either either party in this game, and it's going to be a track meet. It's going to be a high scoring game. So you better embrace that high scoring game if you're the Bills. And I think they will. I think that Sean McDermott really has taken some substantial strides in the belief department, in the Josh Allen department, in the choosing to believe department. And what a test to go against the coach who is all of that in spades and Dan Campbell.
No, they got yeah. We talked about that early, that press conference, how I think it was all just so in our face. He comes right in your face right away in that press conference. But you know what? He backed it up with that's how his team plays. It took on its culture. It's what's crazy about this game too for Buffalo. The way you beat Detroit is obvious, and the way you beat any great offense is get to the quarterback. He's one of the few quarterbacks you can get to because he can't move. They just have that, they protect so well. They can run the ball, so they actually protect him. I mean, if you did have the dogs up front, with all these first round picks that Buffalo has up front, they were actually playing up to that level. I mean, I think this is then it changes everything because Goff can't, he can't move. He has a fatal flaw.
Yes and no, though, because I mean, really, when you blitzed Jared Goff for a while, it was that was the way you did it. But I mean, thinking at points this year when Brian Flores was blitzing him like crazy in that game
No,
early
Tyler,
in the
they're
season,
it's not
like he had
they can
every answer.
protect
He knew where he was going with it.
exactly. That's what I'm
So
saying. I don't know how
you
you
need
got to
that you
win
need to
your
get pressure without blitzing.
no doubt. That's why you have to have some talent to get to beat those guys up front.
Yeah.
That's really it. I always think about what the Giants did to the Patriots in that Super Bowl. They had the dogs up front and they got their return on investment. They invested high on that D line against Tom Brady and they got the return on investment. They got to the quarterback.
Well, the Bills not have only have invested in first round picks. I mean, let's not forget Mr. Von Miller was
That's
signed to
I
quite a
know.
contract. I'm just going
Yes.
to pull up the numbers here. So um,
I
I
mean, it's the stats aren't good.
mean, it was
You're
obviously
gonna
a 6 year, $120 million contract when he signed. They've got a potential out in 2025, but still they have paid him a ton of money to this point. His cap hit just this year is 14.8. His dead cap is 28.9. Like they've got a lot invested into a player who shows up from time to time. He made one nice play there against the Rams from what I remember.
if he does, like he said, if he does one play in the playoffs that changes the game, they'll feel good on the investment. But so far, you're waiting.
12
You're waiting
tackles,
for it.
4 sacks for Von Miller this season. And you're right, they signed him for January. They signed him
Yeah.
on the heels of 13 seconds, right? On the heels of perhaps the worst loss in team history, if not the worst, right there with wide right. He was signed as the player to get to Mahomes, create a turnover, get off the field in the playoffs. Like if he does that, he'll be worth all the money that you could ever look at on Spot Track. Uh,
If and they did that not just for Mahomes, it's Burrow, it's Lamar, it's the AFC. It's you're talking about the all-time quarterback situation right now. So they needed, regardless, you just need to get to a quarterback, whichever one it is.
how about Detroit? Like, let me get your thoughts on the Lions. Um, they're rolling 18 on IR. We've obviously discussed this team and this division at length with Bob McGinn over at the Ty and Bob Pod. Check this week's episode out if you haven't yet. Just really fascinating stuff on how that pro department with the Lions is quite active. I mean, week to week, they're finding bodies that they can plug in. And now I know they're getting healthier this week, but still, like the reason they're the number one seed in the NFC, the reason they're probably the best team in the entire NFL right now, a huge reason is that pro department being able to find a Tim Patrick, a David Long Jr., who's Pat O'Connell, D tackle. Like they've been able to find guys on the fly, plug them in, and keep rolling. I mean, you've been in these pro departments. How difficult is that, Jim, to just scan the wire, scan veteran free agency in the middle of a season, and stash him on your practice squad for a week, and then boom, he's out there for a dozen snaps.
Right. That's a great point. I'm glad you guys spoke about that because those departments, pro departments, don't get talked about a lot. A lot of their work is right now. It's crucial. And it's scanning the waiver wire, but if you would see, it's every position. We're about five deep. You're ready. You have about five names. As soon as you see an injury in a game, it's the director of personnel is texting the director of pro scouting, hey, we need to, hey, get on the phone. Hey, get these three in for a workout. Let's get it's all ready to go. It is snap your finger, but their work has been done. Their work is nonstop. The pro department, what they do. And it's a credit. You're right. It gets you through the season. I always think about Bakari Rambo in Buffalo when we had him.
Yeah.
I think he was kind of a guy that had a big time game against Green Bay, I believe. And it was just,
Yeah.
yeah, but it was,
2014.
yeah, we did like work like that's the type of work you do. You find even when we got Kyle Orton that year, we not that he was some,
Mike
unknown.
Gillisley was another one for you.
Nah, that was a one I was heavily involved in, really proud of. But those are the moments, those are the fun things that people don't really pay attention to when you're picking guys off other teams' practice squads, the Logan Thomases, like that stuff. That's what pro departments and director of personnel are doing. But you're right. So yeah, to answer your question, that's a big part for Detroit. You asked me about Detroit though. Their D line obviously is the that we need to know, right? Are they going to be able to, you know, they lost a dog. I mean, Hutchinson was, he was the return on investment. He is the guy that can't be, you have to pay attention to if you're the opposing team. Now you don't have that. That's a big, big difference. So yeah, I think that's right. I think that's major. Um, I'm sure it'll be good to see this week to see if Detroit can even slow down the Bills. I don't know so to me, when you're in track meets, that's a scary way to live. But I don't think Detroit's going to be in track. They're not necessarily, they're at an advantage because offensively they can score enough early that you can predict, you can dictate then to that offense. They have to throw, they got to score to
Yeah.
keep up with you. So it helps. You can.
Right. I mean, Zadarius Smith has to be their season
Right.
savior. I mean, he is the player that will need to apply consistent pressure. And Bob has been chronicling Zadarius's return hilariously at times with we call it a C&E, his crawl and eat after sacks. When he's crawling on the ground, he is an animated player. I've sat down with him when he was with the Vikings. He is opinionated, fun, explosive. They traded for Zadarius Smith to replace Aiden Hutchinson and to keep this Super Bowl train moving. So he's somebody to
And I'm
watch
looking,
against Josh
and I'm
Allen.
right, and I'm checking all their defensive stats. Right, I mean they're very similar. They're very similar to Buffalo on defense, believe it or not, where they rank in yards per play. Um, Detroit's like 14th, Buffalo's like 16th in the NFL, which means that's a mid. That makes sense for their defenses. They're giving up the yards, but then
Yeah.
you look at points per play, they're both in the top 10. They're not giving up those. So that's how Jim Johnson in Philadelphia when I started he always said that, hey, we're in the yards 20 to go ahead and move the ball from the 20 to 20, get your 3 points if you want. Like that's how they felt. Like we just don't give up that 7 and get turnovers.
The red zone
Again,
is everything in the
it's
NFL, isn't it?
everything.
It's
It's
everything.
everything. Everything. You see, I don't care what you see a first opening drive. Thanksgiving, Detroit, the first game of the day, Detroit went right down the field. What happened? They settle for 3. And right away, you're looking around like, well, maybe not everybody, but as a gambler, you're looking around saying, no, 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 that's not good. You're going to keep field goals, keep teams around. They let teams hang around when you're the better team. Touchdowns, everything.
Buffalo is fifth in the NFL in red zone TD percentage. They're scoring touchdowns 68.5% of the time. The Detroit Lions are sixth at 67.27%. So that's why these are two teams with the records that they have. I mean, they're scoring touchdowns, they're not selling for field goals, and I mean, this is what's wild. I mean, look at the top 5. Baltimore is 1, Cincinnati is 2,
Well, yeah.
Chicago is 3, Jim. Tampa is 4. And then you go to the end, and guess who's dead last? It's the New York Giants with Brian Dable. Never would expect, regardless of who's playing quarterback, who's in, who's out. Like you always say, everybody's injured in the NFL. That is shocking to me that the offensive coordinator for the same Bills machine, 41.67% of the time that the Giants are scoring touchdowns. Guess who's 25th? Kansas City. Mahomes, 50.98. Guess who's
Well,
29th? The Pittsburgh Steelers, 45.65. Like, there are some good teams down there, too.
are you sure? You can be a good team and have an average offense because Kansas City, it's why they're every game comes down to the last second. They can't score in the red zone. Pittsburgh makes sense. Every game we watch for them, they either hit a deep shot off play action or else they aren't scoring.
Yeah.
Offense looks like garbage. So it makes sense. Like it does. It's really funny. It's funny how you put like Cincinnati. I mean, once again, whew, what a Christmas gift. And Brian Dable, I'd love to see his Christmas gift to Josh Allen every year. I hope he's sending something nice. He and Joe Shane should be sending Josh Allen beautiful gifts every Christmas.
Now, Jim, Joe Shane should stay as general manager of the New York Giants.
No, I'm good with that. As long as they give gifts to Josh Allen, they have those
Okay,
jobs because
okay,
of him. That's all. They
okay.
can
I
stay.
got you. I got you. They can stay.
You finished dead last in
I
something.
heard from everybody. I read your emails. I read the comments, the DMs. Many disagreed with my take, which is great. That's what we love at Go Long. I want all opinions. No voice will ever be suppressed. Send me everything, always. But yes, I would like to see Joe Shane draft a quarterback. And look, he's had his faults. They've had picks that haven't quite worked out. Evan, Neal, hello. But I do feel like, and maybe it's hanging out with you as much as we hang out, Jim. Like I want to see smart football people who have lived down the road, who've done this for a living for years and years and years, like get to that position and have a chance to draft their quarterback. And I get it. Part of it is his fault for believing in Daniel Jones. But I tried to take it kind of step by step in that story last week on how it kind of got out of hand for him and what led to the decision to pay Daniel Jones and believe in him. I mean, hell, he took you to the playoffs. He won a game. You've got Dable on the heels of doing what he did with Josh Allen. Like, I get it. I get wanting to see if there's more there with weapons, with time. And as I wrote, I've had sources tell me like the contract might have changed Daniel Jones to an extent. And for everything you see in practice, for everything you see off the field, leadership, work ethic, size, he's got a lot that you love. You can see why people have believed in Daniel Jones. He gets onto the field, and the quote I believe was, "Wires get crossed. It's a tick slow. Something goes awry." And it took the Giants a long time, obviously, to get to the point of realizing that. I get the argument, well, they should have just known this early and moved on. But read it. Get back to me. Let me know what you think, everybody. It's there at golongtd.com. Any final thoughts, Jim? Because I just got a text from my wife, and she's bringing the kids back. They stayed at her parents' last night, and we got a lot of our Christmas shopping done. And all of the presents are just laid out in the living room. So I'm going to be playing a game of beat the clock here.
No, you are now. No final thoughts. No final thoughts.
No final
Go
thoughts?
ahead.
Yeah.
No,
If
you
you
need
got
to
a final
go
thought,
enter.
make it quick.
You need to go enter your tornado. You are about to enter what the Bears are in right now in their building. Good luck.
I will say that our Thunderdome of a basement is absolutely our tornado. We've been blasting the Christmas music.
Unlike the Bears, though, the ownership and leadership is very strong in your house.
That's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. All right. You know what the song has been for better or worse lately? That Sonny just wants me to play all the time, and we just go nuts to it. The bird is the word. The epic Family Guy, when Peter just plays it nonstop. Sonny is Peter Griffin now. We play
Got
the
it.
bird is the word all day long. And I'm not sick of it yet. I probably will be tomorrow.
That's this
Hey,
time of year.
I hope things are good with Walter. Let's get together. Let's eat some wings. We gotta do something live too with readers who are local as we get closer to the playoffs. But thank you so much, Jim Onis, for hanging out talking football. I missed it, and thank you so much to all of our subscribers at golongtd.com. We've got a lot at the website right now. I hung out with Sean Ryan out in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Holy hell, was he a fun time? Talked for 2 hours about kicking ass. One of those go long emblems, if there ever was one. But there's a lot that goes into it. There's some nuance to dominating an opponent physically, and Sean Ryan is a very nuanced man. So I think you'll enjoy that. Bob has an incredible column at the site Saturday morning on Kyle Pitts. There were scouts who said that this is the best player in the draft. The same draft with Trevor Lawrence, Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell, Jalen Waddle, all those guys. So where did it go wrong? He catches up with those scouts, with those execs. You're not going to want to miss that. That's for our Go Long subscribers. So a lot going on there. We'll see you inside the game day chat on Sunday. It should be a fantastic chat with readers around the world. We'll get into this game, Bills Lions. We'll get into Packers Seahawks, the nightcap. This was a lot of fun. Jim, thank you so much.